Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jacob Payton here, and today we're talking about Star Wars Aftermath by Chuck Wendig. As the Empire reels from its critical defeats at the Battle of Endor, the Rebel Alliance, now a fledgling New Republic, presses its advantage by hunting down the enemy's scattered forces before they can regroup and retaliate. But above the remote planet Akiva, an ominous show of the enemy's strength is unfolding. Out on a lone reconnaissance mission, pilot Wedge Antilles watches Imperial Star Destroyers gather like birds of prey circling for a kill. But it is taken captive before he can report back to the New Republic leaders. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, former rebel fighter Nora Wexley has returned to her native world, war-weary, ready to reunite with her estranged son, and eager to build a new life in some distant planet. But when Nora intercepts Wedge Antilles' urgent distress call, she realizes her time as a freedom fighter is not over yet. What she doesn't know is just how close the enemy is, or how decisive and dangerous her new mission will be. Determined to preserve the Empire's power, the surviving Imperial elite are converging on Akiva for a top-secret emergency summit to consolidate their forces and rally for a counterstrike. But they haven't reckoned on Nora and her newfound allies, her technical genius son, a Zabrak bounty hunter, and a reprobate Imperial defector who are prepared to do whatever they must to end the Empire's oppressive reign once and for all. That was a mouthful. But I liked this book a lot more than I thought I was going to. This is Journey to the Star Wars The Force Awakens. Here's the thing. I did not love the last three Star Wars movies. I get very burned out on the Jedis being the end-all be-all plot, especially when it's like a massive war, right? Like, that is a war that is happening on multiple planets, and there's only two Sith, and there's not a whole lot of Jedis, so they can't be the only thing that turns the tide all the time, especially when we know that, like, lasers can kill Jedis, right? Like, we saw Jedis get gunned down by blaster fire. We saw Sith get gunned down by blaster fire. So we know that they're not indestructible, right? I mean, someone could blow up Vader's ship and that would be the end of Vader. So, I don't know. I get very burned out, especially in this time period during the Galactic Civil War, because I just feel like there's so much going on that the more stories that come out about it and the more stuff we see in movies, it just becomes less and less, I don't want to say interesting, it just becomes like less relevant, I should say. Like, the whole Luke Skywalker thing makes sense because, you know, him taking out Emperor Palpatine basically threw the whole Empire into disorder. And, you know, as we read in books like this, and like I've read the Thrawn series now, what we know about the Empire is that while a lot of it is, you know, pretty smart, loyal military commanders, the other part of it is like almost political warlords that see the death of Palpatine as ways that they can kind of rise to power, right? Especially among the Moffs, right? These Grand Moffs basically want to carve up different sections of the universe for their own gain. And especially now that, you know, Palpatine and Vader aren't around to kind of curb their aggression. And greed, I guess, is the other big thing. So we do kind of see that a little bit in this. I don't think anyone's a Jedi at all in this. There's no real talk of Jedi or Sith. So I did enjoy that a lot. Did really also like, you know, the detail that was put into the fact that, you know, this is like right after Endor. This isn't, the New Republic isn't fully set up. A lot of people don't understand what's going on. And I thought that was really interesting to watch play out in this planet of Akiva, where, yes, the Empire has showed up to have a summit to try to figure out what their next move is amongst the powerful individuals that they are able to rally at this like last minute notice. Of course, they capture Wedge Antilles, who is a classic Star Wars character. But it was kind of interesting watching Nora and her son and how they kind of maneuver, because her son is very tapped in with a lot of the local crime syndicates and also just a lot of the wheelers and dealers. So watching everyone kind of pick sides, it in some cases it's, one of the big bads in this book is a local crime lord, and he's kind of leaning towards the Empire because he's helped them so much in the past that he's like, hey, the New Republic, they're not going to forgive that, right? So I did think that was really interesting, and it makes it a very, I think, real story, because if we know anything about wars, especially ones that are against a super authoritarian government, it's like, yeah, usually the people that overthrow them also punish the people that collaborated with them. That is something that would be a real fear, even amongst, a Star Wars-esque society. I did like the fact that while this book was very serious, there was a lot of humorous moments thrown in. There's a lot of innuendo and stuff between different alien species as they were trying to communicate, and I thought that was really fun. I also very much enjoyed the fact that droids played a pivotal part in this, because I love droids in Star Wars, especially the battle droids, because they're always entertaining. I don't know why all Star Wars AI feels the need to try to be funny, or I guess they don't mean to be, but they end up being funny, but I do really enjoy it. I have not read the second book yet, but I'm definitely going to read the second book. There is... this book, I definitely feel like... how do I phrase this? It was setting up everything that's going to happen in the rest of the series, if that makes sense, right? We're given a lot of world building in this book. So while there is action and there is a lot of stuff going on, it's very open-ended, because we're really just, I think, being given all the characters, all the players, so to speak, that are going to make the next part of the story unfold. I'm interested to see if Thrawn is going to make an appearance, because we do know that he is kind of one of the last Grand Admirals, if not the only Grand Admiral standing after the Galactic Civil War, and also probably one of the most dangerous, mostly because he is not motivated by greed or, becoming a warlord of some section of the galaxy and making himself like a new Palpatine. He has grander motivations that the Empire itself is not even aware of. And if you want to know about those, I will be doing a whole video series on the Thrawn series, because I did read that series pretty recently, and that is on my list of things to do as I get back into making videos more regularly. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Even Nora's story I thought was kind of interesting, because we do have all these people who were soldiers of the New Republic. They were rebel fighters, and now they're returning home, and home is not how they left it. Her son has grown up. He's kind of resentful of the fact that she left, and that's a big that's kind of a contentious story, but also one that's very real and very believable. If your parents left home to fight in a war, a galactic civil war, and they kind of left you, she tries to explain it to him, but his whole thing is well, my mom was gone. And it's yeah, that's a believable story, and that is something I could understand someone being angry about, even though she was doing what she thought was right, and what is arguably right, because the Empire, they're not great. Another story I thought was very interesting was Jaz's story, Jas. So I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, and that is the Zabrak bounty hunter, because her story begins in this book of her thinking that she's gonna kind of maybe take in some rebels or something, because their bounties are high on them. But as the story continues and she's watching things that's happening, she's kind of under the realization that even though the Empire is still paying, that might not be a good idea to keep doing bounties for the Empire, and the New Republic also pays for Imperial bounties. So it's kind of interesting kind of watching all these characters accept the way the tide is turning. Even the guy who is a loyalty officer who turns his back, and I don't want to spoil too much of his story because I thought it was really interesting. He's a really interesting character. But it is kind of interesting watching. I don't want to say the most loyal Imperial citizens, but just Imperial soldiers in general who held high-ranking positions, seeing a way to leave the Empire now that it's kind of falling in on itself without fear of retaliation. Because we are kind of given the idea that what kept so many Imperial officers in line was the fact that there was no quitting that job, right? If you walked away, you were basically signing your own death warrant. So the fact that you can kind of now do that, and you can outrun the Empire now, right? You can get away from them. They are not everywhere anymore. They're not strong. You could go to a New Republic world and you will not have to worry about that retaliation, right? That's going to greatly decrease the number of officers that stay with them. And I think going forward, and obviously what played out in the movies is what we see is the ones that stay with the Empire tend to be more of the diehards, the radicals. They're the ones that fully believe in everything the Empire is doing. And most of that ends up being a lot of the really evil stuff. This, the taking of slaves and the spice mining and just all these horrible things, or like the atrocities where they're blowing up whole worlds, because they're fully on board with the idea that not only does the end justify the means, but that the Empire has the right to do it. Which is something that I don't think I've seen in a lot of the early, in a lot of the Thrawn books, for instance, which we kind of see a different side of the Empire, especially among its upper echelon, where there is, the flip side of that are just the people that are like, well, this is what the Empire is now, but if we can get, whatever goal under control, then they won't be as evil anymore, right? There's kind of this idea that all the brutality is because it's facing brutality. So if it wasn't facing brutality, the Empire wouldn't be as brutal. So I thought it was kind of interesting to watch that kind of play out in an entirely different way. I also really like the fact that a lot of what sets up the tension in this book and on Akira is that not even them showing up or them doing anything, but it's kind of showing how the New Republic itself is using propaganda of imperial brutality against the Empire. And I thought that was really interesting, because that is definitely something that a rebel group would do, right? They're not as funded as the Empire, so how can they turn populaces against them if they're not winning victory after victory? And it's, oh yeah, well, you can stream whatever, right? You could load these videos up that make it look like the Empire is shooting kids in the street, and even though they might not have done it on that planet, they've probably done it somewhere, so it's believable enough that the local populace will in turn kind of radicalize and turn against them. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed what it's setting up, what I think is going to be a really interesting series. I'm excited to see kind of this power struggle that's starting to erupt amongst the surviving members of the Empire, and also kind of seeing what the New Republic, their response is going to be to it, because especially with the fact that characters like Wedge have been put in here. We also kind of get a brief look at what Han's doing at this time, and it looks like he's going to liberate Kashyyyk, or try to liberate parts of Kashyyyk. So I'm very interested in seeing how that plays out, because I love Wookiees. I love a lot of the Wookiee plot lines. And of course, during the time period of the Galactic Republic, they are fully enslaved by the Empire. I mean, that's how he met Chewbacca, is he frees him. So it's going to be very interesting, I think, to see, or at least I would like to see, a really cool war on Kashyyyk, because the idea of a large army of, now I can't think of the race of beings that Chewbacca is. Wookiees. I don't know how I forgot that word, but seeing a large army of Wookiees taking on remnants of the Empire, I think would make for an awesome story. So I'm excited to finish the rest of the series. I really like this first book. Like I said, though, it is kind of setting up the rest of the series. So there are a lot of, just single chapters things where it's like, this character's doing this and we do not go back to it. But I think that's fine, because once again, this is the first book in a series, and that's what I think good first books do, right? They set the hooks in so you finish the rest of the series. So I did really enjoy this. If you've read the rest of the series, or you read this book, let me know if you liked it or didn't like it in the comments below. If you know other Star Wars series you guys think I should read like this that are a little more military science fiction, I guess, or of that bent, also let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.